What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we'll be doing a full comparison between the new Samsung Galaxy A51 and last year's A50 and A50S. Now, I know for a lot of you guys, your number one question is probably whether or not you should upgrade to the new A51, and I hope I can help you with that decision with this comparison. But I also know that some folks might be looking at the A50 or A50S as their next phone, since both of these devices now have come down in price and are readily available just about everywhere. Either way, I hope this video helps you in your purchase decision, and if you want to do some comparison shopping yourself, I will have links to all of these phones down below in the video description at their current cheapest prices from Amazon and B&H Photo, so you can take a look for yourself and maybe pick one up. To start things off, let's actually talk about the pricing and availability, since that's probably the first major factor most people consider. The A51 right now is available for just under $300 in various unlocked, dual SIM, and international versions. I've seen it as low as $285, but so far, at least at the time of filming this video, we don't have any word on carrier deals yet. That will likely change in the coming months though, so keep an eye on places like Metro for potentially a better deal. The A50, which is technically the oldest of the three devices by just a couple of months, also retails new for just under $300, but since this phone has been out for a while, there are some carrier deals to take advantage of, and an Amazon renewed listing for this device at $200, which I think is probably the best deal you'll find. Keep in mind that even though the A50 is being replaced by the A51, the phone is barely 8 months old, so still pretty new, and a 33% discount is an absolute steal. The A50S came out back in September, so also still a relatively recent phone, but it too is already selling at a discount from its retail price. I've seen it as low as $250, which again is not a bad discount on a phone that's barely been out for a few months. In regards to the actual phones, there are of course some physical differences and some new features that might sway you one way or another, but to be totally honest, the differences here are pretty subtle. First off, physically all three of these phones are pretty close to one another. The A50 and A50S are essentially identical. They're the same size, the same setup, you can't tell them apart at all really. Aside from some different color options and like a few millimeters of difference in the housing, from the outside they're practically the exact same phones. When we move up to the A51 though, we definitely see some changes. Up front, the A51 received Samsung's Infinity O display with a front camera cutout, while the A50 and A50S both retained that teardrop notch. This, I think, is more of a personal preference than anything else, but the cutout makes the phone, I think, look more modern and premium. The bottom bezel or chin on the A51 has also been shaved down just a bit as well, and overall gives the phone a more even look all around. Again, not a game changer here, but something I did want to note. Everything else though, at least with the housing and materials, are all identical across the three devices. They all offer a plastic build with polished accents and various shifting color options. On the left, there's your SD and SIM slot. The right has the power and volume buttons positioned and set up basically the same, and underneath you'll find a headphone jack, USB-C charging ports, and a single downward firing speaker on each of the three phones, so no difference there. The main physical difference, of course, has to do with the camera modules around back. The camera setups here are pretty different across all three of these phones, and I will talk about all that in just a minute. I do want to talk about the displays though first, because there are a couple of important things to note. First off, in regards to the screen size, because we slimmed down the bottom bezel on the A51, we now have a 6.5-inch display, while the A50s have a 6.4-inch display. That means you're also getting a slightly different resolution, 2400 by 1080 on the A51 versus 2340 by 1080 on the A50s. And by extension, the aspect ratio is altered slightly to 20 by 9 for the A51 versus 19.5 by 9 for the A50s. But beyond the ever so slight difference in size, the physical hardware of the displays appears to be identical. They're all Super AMOLED panels covered in Gorilla Glass 3, and they all look great from every angle. I can't say for certain that anything changed from the A50 to the A50S to the A51, but I will say that in my experience, out of the box, the A51 appears slightly less saturated than the A50s. I can't attribute that to anything specific, unfortunately. It's just my own observation, so consider it however you'd like. But all in all, as far as the screens are concerned, there's no major changes or upgrades between any of the three phones. And there's also that in-display fingerprint reader in each of the three phones, and as far as I'm aware, there seems to be no changes. As far as the internal specs are concerned, this is where we start to see a bit more of a difference. Now, right off the bat, all three phones are powered by a 4,000 mAh capacity battery and support fast charging via the included 15-watt power brick. So when it comes to power and charging, there seems to be no changes or upgrades there. With the processors, there is a bit of a difference, though probably not what you'd expect. The A50 packs Samsung's Exynos 9610, while the A50S and the new A51 both pack an Exynos 9611. Each of these phones also has an option of either 4GB of RAM or 6, but I think the most surprising thing here is that Samsung really didn't make any major upgrades internally with the A51. Now, honestly, I think all of these phones are fast and smooth and perform pretty well anyway, and the 9611 is still a relatively new processor. But if you're thinking of upgrading on performance alone, I don't know if that's a strong argument. One thing worth considering in regards to the usability of these devices is the fact that out of the box, the A50 ships with Android 9 and One UI, and currently there is no official Android 10 update available for this phone. The A50S, on the other hand, is getting Android 10 and One UI 2 right now, which is great to see. And obviously, the A51 ships with that new software out of the box. So if software updates are important to you, the A50S or A51, at least right now, are both better options. But in all honesty, I personally feel as though those updates are not critically important when it comes to features and performance. And in real-world use, launching apps and flipping through the phone and doing sort of everyday tasks, the difference in performance and load times, even with different CPUs and software versions, is negligible to say the least. We're talking Geekbench and Antutu benchmark scores that are within just a few percentage of each other. So in my opinion, performance is not exactly the deciding factor to consider. Easily, the most significant difference between these three phones is the camera setup. And I think I need to do a comprehensive, dedicated video showcasing them in real-world usage, but I want to take some time to talk about what's going on here first so you guys have a clear picture of what you're getting. First off, the standard A50 packs 3 lenses, a 25 megapixel main shooter, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 5 megapixel depth sensor. The A50S gets a significant upgrade to the main lens, 48 megapixels, in addition to the 8 megapixel ultra wide and 5 megapixel depth sensor. The A51, with its new rectangular camera setup, packs 4 lenses now, which include a 48 megapixel main shooter, an upgraded 12 megapixel ultra wide, the 5 megapixel depth sensor, and a brand new 5 megapixel macro lens for close-up photography. Feature-wise, there are a lot of similarities here between these phones. You have live focus, night mode, super slow-mo, pro settings, but the difference in real-world capabilities when it comes to the A51 in particular, I think is pretty significant. And it's a similar story up front too. The A50 packs a 25 megapixel selfie camera. The A50S is a little better with a 32 megapixel shooter, and while the hardware appears to be the same on the A51, it goes all out with 4K front-facing video recording. Now, here's the thing about many of these budget and mid-range phones. The cameras are usually not all that great, and the A50, I think, even coming from Samsung, was lackluster. The A50S improved a bit, but with the A51, the cameras seem to be the biggest focus, the biggest upgrade, and the most significant difference between these three devices. If that's what's important to you, the A51 is the phone to go with. There's no question about that. However, if you're not huge on taking pictures, I think you have a bit tougher of a decision. While the A51 is shiny and new, grabbing an A50, which again is still just 8 months old for $200, I think that's a pretty good deal, and that might be what I recommend out of everything. at least until the A51 becomes more widely available. Once this device hits the shelves of some major carriers and prepaid retailers, I'm pretty confident it'll be a popular phone, especially here in the US, and it likely checks all of the boxes that a lot of people are looking for in their new phone. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this comparison. If I happen to miss anything important, or maybe you guys want to chime in about your own experiences, feel free to do so and leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Also, be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.